Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Coach Cody podcast. So, I'm gonna admit I'm a little more anxious than usual today, which is, I'm pretty much anxious every day, which I'll talk about at another time. But I'm recording this on Sunday, August 4th, and I have surgery on August 5th, bright and early. So it almost feels like surgery is today because I have to leave my house at like 3 in the morning. So I'm driving down to San Francisco. I'm getting a revision on my arm graft. If you're watching this on YouTube, there's a plethora of videos surrounding phalloplasty and my arm graft. I probably should have made like a separate video for YouTube. But anyways, getting a revision on my graft finally because it's been causing me issues for years. I just have not wanted to take a break in training, but it's gotten to the point where it's pretty uncomfortable. But not only is it uncomfortable, but it is actually causing, some symmetry issues because the graft is so tight that it essentially induces blood flow restriction training. So my left arm is a bit larger and stronger than my right arm. I'm always getting a better pump in my left arm because of the graft. And we cannot have that. We cannot have one side bigger than the other. So hey, if that's one motivation for me, but also the discomfort. So I'm trying to focus on, thinking about the potential relief. Surgeries are rough. I've been putting it off for so long because I've been tired of having surgery disruptions where I'm basically recovering, trying to build back muscle, going into surgery, trying to build back that muscle, going into surgery, and every time I'm kind of getting back to where I was, I'd have to go back into surgery. But I've had a good 5-year break from surgeries, and I'm not competing this year, so I figured, hey, you know what? Maybe this is the time to do it. There's never going to be a good time, so jumping in. This year has definitely not gone the way that I was anticipating. I will go over that again at another time. But yeah, it's been transformative, but not in the way that I was hoping. I feel like that's just how life goes most of the times, right? But anyways, so surgery is happening. By the time you watch this, I will have been, in and out of surgery. But anyways, so there's a lot of things going on in the world. Like I said, there every week there's something with the political spectrum of things, and we've got the Olympics, which has turned political numerous times. And I don't know about you, but I'm exhausted. The latest thing was on the Algerian boxer who everyone was saying was a trans woman, but misinformation happening there. They're actually not a trans woman. They were born female. There's still speculation on, if they have disorder, basically being intersex. But no one actually knows for sure, what the situation is there, with, I guess she's had higher testosterone levels, but it's just something that, she was just born that way. There's speculation of, her having, something where they develop essentially female, but still have XY chromosomes. But anyways, as usual, the trans community got its usual hate on a weekly basis, and it was sucky. And this poor woman actually had to receive all the hate. It is illegal to be transgender in the country that she comes from, and I can't imagine what it must feel like to work so hard for something your whole life and competing in the Olympics to just be the start of an internet outrage campaign once again. And it's really sad to see. And I would hope, I don't know, I just feel like I wish we could get through a week without there being some sort of outrage over something that's essentially nothing. Yeah. Anyways, that's another topic for another time. But today I wanted to actually talk about competing and, competing in bodybuilding. And, if you're someone who is thinking about competing, you think you're ready to compete, or maybe you're thinking about competing in the near future or future, I wanted to go over what some checklists to make sure you're ready to compete. And so, first things first, when it comes to bodybuilding, mindset is everything. It is a physical sport, but it is also mostly mental. And that's not just for the prep aspect of things where you're starving, your calories are low, you're fatigued, you're tired because you're trying to get your body fat levels so low, but also in the off season. And so some mindset things that you need to have in order to be ready to compete. So I would say, do not think about competing if you don't already have down the basics or foundations in your off season. Are you able to stay disciplined? Are you able to stay on track and on plan? Having accountability is helpful, but are you able to do it consistently for yourself? Are you able to essentially obsess over your food and your workouts? Because that's basically what bodybuilding takes. That's why I always joke, bodybuilders, essentially there's something wrong with us. So if you don't want to compete in bodybuilding or you don't like it, chances are you're normal, because I am not. I am not normal. I obsess. Man, that's another conversation for another day. But yeah, so what are you willing to do in order to compete? I think sometimes people have an unrealistic idea or expectation of what it takes to compete in a show, and then maybe you might dive into a contest prep and realize, holy shit, this was not what I was expecting, this isn't for me, or etc. So I want to try to give you the most realistic expectations when it comes to bodybuilding and being competitive in bodybuilding. So I talked about certain mindset things, having those foundations down, your basic level of foundations. Are you able to prep your food? Are you able to track, stay within your macros, your calories, go to sleep on time, get enough adequate sleep, hydration, like all those very, very basic things? If you do not have those things down first, do not even think about competing. I'm not even fucking with you. Do not, because you're going to need those things times 100. Not only is the question of, can you do those things in normal life circumstances, but can you do those things in very stressful life circumstances? Because prep in itself is stressful, but also prep is different, where if you have hurdles thrown at you, as life does, you cannot just stop. You cannot pivot in a way that you can in your off season or outside of prep. It is the priority, and you have to keep going essentially at all costs, unless you're dying. But the expectation is you don't let anything stop you to get up on that stage. So just know, if you are not there mentally, then maybe take some more time, maybe reconsider, maybe think, maybe competing is not something that you want to do someday. I'm just trying to be as straightforward as possible here, by the way. So, bodybuilding has its psychological demands. So we've got, the discipline, the patience, the perseverance, and that is what I love about it the most. But it's also what many lack or don't understand, that it is not just, part of the sport. It is all of the sport. The discipline is absolutely key. And you have to like it at least a little. You have to enjoy it, because there's no way that you can push yourself to the level that you need to push yourself in bodybuilding if you also do not have a passion for it. Just saying. All right. Maybe you have a bucket list goal of competing once in your life, just to compete, which it's great. But I guess I would ask you, consider the why. Some people do shows and it's their first time and they get absolutely hooked. They're like, holy shit, this is the thing I want to do. Some other people do shows and they're like, never fucking again. That was awful. Both are fine. But just understand, whether it's your first time or potentially your last time, you have to commit to giving it your 100%. That's the key. Commitment, discipline, patience in the off season, of course. And you don't want to compete too soon either. You want to make sure that you have a base level of muscle. So if you're just starting to work out and all of a sudden you decide you want to do a show, I'm sorry, but you need to at least look like you lift first, right? Okay. So anyways, there's also, as I mentioned, there's prep is a stressor in and of itself. So you also have to learn to navigate, the pressures of competing, standing up on stage, in front of a lot of people. If you have social anxiety, you need to mentally prepare. I personally have social anxiety, and that is the worst part for me. I enjoy competing, but I don't so much enjoy the social anxiety of it, being up on stage in front of a bunch of people. Not great, but I'm so competitive, it powers me through that. So if you're a competitive person, chances are you'll do fine, even if you are socially anxious. But most important thing we also want to consider. So if, let's say you've been working out for a while, you've got a good base of muscle, and you're like, all right, I'm ready to compete. So stress levels are going to be huge. You should not compete if your life is already crazy and you can hardly kind of stick to the basics or foundations, or maybe you're having really, really bad anxiety as it is, or maybe you're depressed. If you are having any sort of, extra stress on you, I would not recommend doing a bodybuilding competition. Maybe you can do it a little bit later once things have smoothed out a little, but prep is such a stressor in and of itself. You don't want to go into it already stressed. I'm telling you that. So you have to just be prepared for, a very restrictive diet, not having time for much else, not having really a social life, because you can't just go out and eat at a restaurant like a normal person because you don't know the macros in it. And the biggest difference between competing, being in contest prep versus outside of it is, I always tell my clients, I don't expect you to be perfect. But when it comes to bodybuilding prep, you can't be necessarily perfect, but I want you to try as fucking hard as you can to be perfect with prep, because every little thing counts. This is where absolutely every little thing counts. There is no wiggle room like there is in, maybe a diet outside of prep, just regular weight loss, or just, fitness for fun. That is entirely different, where you can have more wiggle room and follow the 80-20 rule, 80% on point, 20% not so much. This is not like that with prep. So you have to know that you're going to have to find different ways of coping. If you're an emotional eater, you have to find different ways of going on dates. If you and your partner, whatever, like to go out to restaurants to eat, you're not going to be able to do that. So you have to keep these things in mind when you are signing up. And if you just have to figure out different ways to connect with your partner outside of going out to eat. My partner and I, we still will eat together, but we'll eat different things. And we enjoy our time together regardless of if we're eating the same things or if we're going to restaurants. So you just have to find ways to connect outside of your usual, food outings and stuff like that. So keep that in mind. And also, your partner has to be supportive, because if they aren't, chances are they're probably going to resent you. It is a very selfish sport, especially in prep. You don't have a lot of energy. You're hangry a lot of the times. And it's not to say that you're going to be completely unpleasant the whole time, but it is a bit of a team effort within a relationship. Your partner has to know you're probably not going to feel like being social, and you're probably not going to be going to a lot of events because it just makes it really hard. And you're probably not going to be taking them out to dinner. After prep, that's where you can take them out to dinner again. And you have to remember that it's temporary. Prep isn't forever. So hopefully that's something you can talk to your partner about and make sure they're on board with you. I think those are things to establish first. Is your partner on board? How are your stress levels? And how is your mindset? How are your foundations? Are you on point with those? So this is the checklist we're going down currently. But the next checklist item that you need to make sure that you consider is your finances. So that's something that many people overlook. Bodybuilding is not cheap, especially when you consider, coaching fees. If you have a coach, which I highly recommend you do. I have a coach. Even all the bodybuilders at the Olympia have coaches. Even if they are completely able to coach themselves, they have the knowledge, it's not recommended because we don't have We're our own worst critics, and a lot of times we can overthink, and we need that outside perspective of things. I know I do personally, because I would probably think that either I'm too small, or I need to, take off more fat or something, and do things that would just be not in line with what the reality was. I would say a lot of people in bodybuilding have body dysmorphia. So you don't want to let your body dysmorphia coach you through prep. So hire a coach. They'll tell you where you're at for real. And as long as you can trust them, which that's another thing, make sure you have a coach you can trust and that they will tell you the truth and not just be a yes man for you. If you find a coach that is telling you, yeah, you're definitely going to win and you look fine, even though you're still, like 20% body fat, find a new coach. You need someone who's going to be honest with you. So there's a difference between honest and mean. So respectfully honest, okay? Someone you can trust that's going to be honest. That's who I look for. And, I prefer not to, I've never been yelled at or whatever by a coach. I just respect someone who is honest with me because I know they have my best interest in mind. So find that honest coach person that you can go to, because maybe your spouse, your family is going to tell you how good you look and you're number one in their eyes. But unfortunately, your family is not judging the bodybuilding show, so you cannot trust what they're telling you. Go by what your coach is telling you, okay? So finances, you got your coach. Posing coach, if you're... I highly recommend hiring a posing coach, because posing can make all the difference. It can help you show off your physique in the best way, showing off your strong points, hiding your not so strong points, that sort of thing. So hire a posing coach. Do not skimp. If you're going to do this thing, go all in. Make it worth your time and effort. I promise you, if you go all in and just make it worth it, you won't regret it. You'll always learn something, even if you decide not to do it ever again. So we've got posing coach, then we've got the entry fees, especially if you're entering multiple categories. I entered 2 categories, and I think it was like $200 per class. So it's pretty easy to rack up registration fees. So competing in one day, let's say you enter 3 classes, that could be like $600. So pretty hefty. And then you have the tanning fees. It's another one. Usually that's like somewhere in the hundreds, like $125. Can be more depending on the company that's tanning. And then you have your suit, your posing suit, whether you're in bodybuilding or men's physique or etc. You need your shorts or you need your trunks. Those are going to cost a bit, especially if you need them altered. I think I spent about $100 on my board shorts for men's physique, which is crazy because you're like, wow, I'm paying this much for board shorts. Then I had to have them altered. So that's another expense. So I'm trying to think of other expenses. Oh yeah, like supplements, equipment. Hopefully you already have all the equipment you need, but supplements are going to be a big one. And that's another thing, another realistic thing to consider, depending on what competition you're doing. So there are natural shows you could do. There's natural federations, and then there's not natural. So NPC, I think they do have like a natural aspect to them, but it's just open categories. So there, you have to expect there's going to be a lot of PED use. So if you're looking to be competitive, just know that might be in your future because everyone else is using them, unfortunately. Unless you have really good genetics, which some do, you might be able to get away with not. But if you do not, chances are, if you want to be competitive and you want to win, you want to get your pro card, you're going to have to dip your toe into PEDs. Unless you are someone who can compete in the natural divisions, which as a trans guy, I actually cannot, because I take a synthetic testosterone, cypionate to be exact. They do not test your testosterone levels, they test for substances. So if I did a natural bodybuilding show and I won or something and I was tested, I would come back positive for PEDs. And also, it's just not fair, in my opinion, because when cis men compete in natural bodybuilding, their testosterone levels essentially tank, especially when they're getting to single-digit body fat percentages. They're feeling more sluggish. They're no libido, because their testosterone levels are pretty low at that point. But for me, I can control my testosterone levels because I'm injecting exogenous hormones. So, on that note, even if I could compete in a natural bodybuilding federation, I wouldn't, because I don't think it's fair. So, that leaves you between a rock and hard place if you're a trans guy. You either, do your best in the NPC without PED use. Maybe you have good genetics. Awesome. You don't have to dip your toe in there then. Or maybe you just want to compete and you don't care if you place or whatever, then cool. But if you want to be competitive and you want to take it seriously, chances are that's going to be part of the equation. So I just want you to be prepared for that. It is a huge piece of competitive bodybuilding. I'm not going to say it's not. It's pretty obvious if you've ever watched a bodybuilding show. None of those guys up there are natural. All right. So keep that in mind. I was once very naive, and I'm not here to keep everyone naive because, yeah, it comes with a little extra supplementation, and that's also going to be something you're going to want to add into your budget. All right. So, I think the other big thing, so I think it's all with expenses. Sorry, this podcast is a little bit all over the place because my brain is too, because I'm anxious because of surgery. So I apologize. But to go back, I'm going to go back to the mindset of prep just to clarify. I think another thing to distinguish prep mindset versus not prep mindset. So not prep mindset is looking for shortcuts. Even, whether it's, I'm trying to think of specifically, basically if you're always trying to do the bare minimum, that's going to be an issue. What you should be shooting for is doing whatever you can to get to your goal at all costs. So if you have 60 minutes of cardio 6 days a week, don't be asking your coach if you can just do 30 minutes. Don't be going to your coach asking if you can do less, because they have a plan for you. They have your best interest in mind. And of course they're going to push you, and you can push back if you are feeling like something is too much. Yes, you can talk to your coach. You can have that conversation. You are a team, so you should be working together. It's not like a dictatorship, but just know that your mindset should not be, how do I get to my goal by doing the least? That shouldn't even be in your mind. It should be, I'm going to do whatever it fucking takes to get on the stage to look my best. And leave it at that. So just want to clarify that. Do not try to shortcut yourself by, sneaking in little snacks here and there. Be like, oh, my coach won't notice. Or I'm going to eat off meal plan. My coach won't notice. Or I'm going to eat out at this restaurant and just try to make it fit my macros, that sort of thing. So if you're lying to your coach, it's only going to impact your progress. And, it's just going to come back on you. Okay. Your coach is just trying to help you, because when you came to them, you gave them a goal, and they're going to try their very hardest to get you where you need to be. So very much so suggest that you follow that. All right. Also, again, with the mindset, do not enter prep without taking it seriously. This is not something that you should do if you're just looking to get shredded for summer. This is a different level. There's a difference between getting lean and getting shredded, and bodybuilding is not the pursuit of health. It is not healthy to get down to single-digit body fat levels. You literally have to push yourself into the ground, lots of cardio, little food, and it's not normal. So unless you are stepping on stage, I don't suggest putting yourself through, if you're not competing and you are putting yourself through prep style of whatever, chances are you might have an eating disorder or something along those lines. So check yourself. But anyways, bodybuilding is a sport. Do not compete if you're just looking to get in shape. You can get in shape outside of bodybuilding, or you can do like a transformation show. Those things do exist now. I've had a few clients go through summer shredding, and that's usually like the first kind of show I recommend, because you can put them through a prep, and then it kind of shows them what it all consists of, and you can determine if you like it, if you want to do it again. So if you want to just choose kind of a transformation show first to see if you like being on stage, it's very similar, but not quite as like serious. So the expectations of your results are not exactly the same. There's certain things that bodybuilding looks for. So, you know, symmetry, size, conditioning, all those things are what are judged in a bodybuilding show, whereas transformation shows, they're looking at your transformation. So where did you start? Where are you now? And they're not judging your posing or anything like that. So that's the biggest difference. But you do want to look your best. So you are going to go through pretty similar prep for those things. But it's a good place to start. Especially if you're someone who has lost a lot of weight or has a lot of weight to lose. Those can be very motivating. So yeah, that's where I'd say it's a great show for beginners. Anyways, taking it seriously. That's the thing. That's probably a pet peeve of mine, of just knowing, you know, bodybuilding is a competitive sport. You know, you wouldn't just show up to a soccer game without being prepared. So do make sure that you give it your best effort before you step on that stage, and take it seriously. If you commit to doing a prep, 100% commit to it. Don't half commit to it. It's not going to go well. I promise you. All right. So let's see. So I do also, you know, I talked a little bit about your partner or spouse or whatever being at least a little bit supportive. And that's going to be extremely, extremely important. There's a lot of times where relationships don't make it through preps when the partner doesn't have the right expectations in their mind as well. Because, you know, like, oh, we don't get to do fun things anymore. We don't get to go out on dates. We don't get to do X, Y, Z. We don't get to be social. That's not to say that everyone on prep can't do dates and socialize. You can. It just depends on the person and how much energy you have. For me, I'm not a huge social person to begin with, so it's not like I was sacrificing a lot. But just know that there are sacrifices that you have to make during prep that you wouldn't normally make. And that means social stuff and things that your partner might really want to do with you. So do make sure your expectations are in the right spot, not just yours, but your partner's as well. Do not sugarcoat it for them, or else they're just going to be, you know, set up for not so much success. They're going to be resentful or something along those lines and be like, you told me this, you know, so do not sugarcoat it. Do not be tempted to sugarcoat it. Give them all the nitty gritty details of what prep includes. I'll probably have Des on here for an episode so she can tell you all her perspective as someone who went through a prep with their partner being the one competing. She'll probably have a much better perspective than I do, along with some tips of how to navigate that. But I think ultimately, you know, as long as the expectations are in this right spot, it's not as hard as you would think. So you need that support system. Your partner, friends, family. If they're not on board, it is exponentially harder. It is an individual sport, but it is a bit of a team effort. All right. So I think that about wraps it up. Just wanting to get the realistic expectations out there about competing. It is hard. It's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. You have to take it seriously. You have to 100% commit to it. If you don't, it's not going to go well. You have to make sure you have all of your basics under control. All your foundations are in place. Food, sleep, training, stress levels, all of it. And also, when it comes to the sportsmanship of this sport, don't go into it thinking you're going to win, or don't get discouraged if you don't win. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing bodybuilding. It doesn't mean you should quit. Just know you're going to lose at this sport a lot more than you're going to win. That's just how it is. And it is subjective. So it's tough, not only because physically it takes a lot out of you, but you could give it your 100% all, show up on show day, and maybe you think that you have a better package that you brought to the stage than the people you competed against. But the judges disagree with you, and they choose other people over you. It's subjective. It's basically, their opinion. Yes, there's certain things they're looking for, but at the end of the day, it is judged by humans who can make mistakes or just have a bias or opinion. So nothing is certain in bodybuilding. Nothing is guaranteed. And as someone who loves certainty, that part does bug me. But I create certainty with knowing that as long as I do everything I can, leave no stones left unturned, no matter what the judges decide, when I stand on stage that day, I'm going to be so fucking proud of myself because I did the work. I did everything I was supposed to do. And the rest is up to them. And that's it. But the reward is you did the thing you committed to. And maybe it's your second or third or whatever time competing. Maybe you beat your physique from the previous time. Or there's days you have off days. It happens. But it doesn't mean that every time you step on stage is going to be a bad result. And that's why I want to remind you, you lose a lot more in this sport than you win. So whether you win or lose in a competition, you're still gaining experience. So don't get down. Just know there's always room for improvement, and that is the beauty of bodybuilding as well. Always looking to improve. So whether you win or lose, that's always going to be the goal. Nothing changes. All right. So I'm going to wrap it up here. But if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or suggestions on topics, make sure to leave them in the comments below. You can now do that on Spotify. And if you're watching this on YouTube, then you can do that there as well. But if you would like to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, that would be, I'd be very grateful for that. If you would like to inquire about training, make sure to visit my website and fill out an application, www.codyharmon.com. Pretty simple. All that will be in the show notes as well. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Peace out. I'll talk to you next time.